I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today I'm pulling off your masks.
It started with a message short, sharp, and delivered in the most public way possible. Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, stood at the podium during a packed African Economic Summit and issued a direct warning not to a terrorist group, not to an armed faction, but to a sitting head of state. His message was aimed squarely at Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and it came with a countdown. You have 72 hours to apologize, or Africa will respond. The room froze. You could feel the tension ripple from the front rows to the press balconies. Cameras clicked. Delegates glanced at each other in disbelief. This wasn't a diplomatic slip. This was intentional. It sent shockwaves across the globe. What triggered this? Why did one of Africa's most defiant leaders give Israel's prime minister a public deadline? Let's break it down. Earlier this week, reports leaked from inside a closed-door G7 briefing where Netanyahu allegedly referred to certain African leaders, specifically Traoré, as political opportunists hiding behind Muslim causes. Multiple journalists and diplomats confirmed the language used was far worse behind the scenes. Words like primitive, naive, and militantly theatrical were used to describe the African response to Israel's Gaza campaign. When those comments went public, social media across Africa lit up. The phrase "Africa is not your pawn" trended across X, TikTok, and Facebook. But Traoré didn't tweet. He didn't post. He waited, and then at the African Development Summit in Addis Ababa, he stepped up to the podium and delivered what may go down as one of the most defiant speeches in modern African diplomacy. No nation has the right to insult another's dignity behind closed doors, he began. No leader should ever call Africans naive for caring about human suffering. Paused, then looked directly at the cameras. Mr. Netanyahu, this is not a game of alliances. It is about decency. You have 72 hours to apologize, or you will no longer be welcome by this continent, not in trade, not in diplomacy, not in future history. Boom. That was the line. No threats of violence, no calls to arms. Just a unified political hammer backed, not by one country, but by a growing chorus of African nations, fed up with being dismissed. And this time, the West couldn't spin it. The footage went viral within minutes. South Africa's foreign minister reposted the video with the words, "Finally, someone said it." Kenya's former ambassador to the UN tweeted, "This is the future of African diplomacy, unafraid, unbought." Meanwhile, Netanyahu's office released a vague, two-sentence denial of the leaked comments, but that only made things worse. Because it wasn't just about what was said, it was about what it revealed. A deep, festering disrespect that many African leaders have felt for years, but rarely confronted so openly. And now, the countdown has begun. As of this video's release, Netanyahu has less than 48 hours left to respond. Traoré has remained silent since his speech. No follow-up, no press statement, only silence. Strategic, deliberate silence. But behind that silence, something is building in Dakar. Thousands gathered in front of the Senegalese parliament holding signs that read, "Africa stands with Traoré, Kampala." Student unions organized rallies calling for a formal African Union condemnation of Netanyahu's remarks. In Lagos, a mural appeared overnight depicting Traoré holding a sand timer. The words beneath it, "Respect Africa," or "Watch the clock run out." This is no longer just a personal dispute. It's become a continental referendum on how Africa sees itself and how it demands to be seen by others. And perhaps most surprisingly, several non-Muslim African leaders have quietly voiced support for Traoré's stand, not because of religion, because of dignity. An aide to Ghana's president told a local journalist, "We may not agree on everything, but we're tired of being patronized." Traoré just said what many of us feel, and that is what makes this moment so dangerous for the status quo. Because once one leader stands without flinching, others start standing too. So what happens if Netanyahu doesn't apologize? The question burning across global think tanks right now. Will the African Union push for trade restrictions? Will Israel's embassies across the continent face diplomatic freeze-outs? Could this spark a full-on realignment in Africa's foreign policy strategy? Nobody knows yet. But here's what we do know. This is a moment of fracture, of realignment, of power shifting not through war, but through words. And Traoré has proven he's willing to go where few African leaders have gone before, into open, unapologetic confrontation with a Western-backed government. That takes more than courage. It takes calculation. And it means one thing. He's not bluffing. So now we wait. The timer is ticking. The world is watching. And Netanyahu is cornered. If you made it this far, you know this isn't just about politics. It's about pride, sovereignty, and the future of how Africa is treated on the world stage. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, whether you stand with Traoré. Share and subscribe if you believe it's time. Africa spoke without fear.